Hello. Hello, everybody. Welcome. You're here tonight for the concert of Ukrainian words and music, produced by the University of Pittsburgh's Slavic, East European, and Near Eastern Summer Language Institute, as well as the University of Pittsburgh Department of Music. My name is Katie Manukyan. Some call me Kathleen Manukyan. Those who know me call me Katie. I am the managing director of the Summer Language Institute here at Pitt and one of the organizers of tonight's event. I'm very, very happy to welcome you, our audience and supporters of Ukraine, to this very important and I think historic occasion for the city of Pittsburgh to have a fully Ukrainian program of poetry and music from both the classical genres as well as the folk genre, and a wonderful, wonderful lineup of performers this evening. Besides myself, you'll be hearing and seeing Dr. Tetyana Shlikhar, our Ukrainian teacher at the Summer Language Institute and fellow faculty member at the University of Pittsburgh's Slavic Department. Two of her students, Dr. Victoria Juharyan, who's taking Ukrainian with us right now at the Summer Language Institute, Jake Detweiler, another graduate student at University of Pittsburgh who's taking Ukrainian, two music department members, Roger Zahab and Robert Frankenberry on the violin and the piano, respectively, as well as a special guest whose name is Jurij Fedynskyj, and who is a real-life, modern-day Kobzar. You'll be learning a lot more later in the program about what that means. And finally, giving us context for tonight's program and speaking throughout the program about what we're going to hear, about the historical as well as the modern contexts for listening, understanding, absorbing this music, is the wonderful Dr. Adriana Helbig, who is chair of the Department of Music, as well as a specialist in Ukrainian music and the author of a monograph on Ukrainian music, and our wonderful speaker for the night. Adriana, I welcome you to the stage, please. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. It's a very warm day in Oakland, and there is absolutely no parking. So those who are staying at home and tuning in to tonight's program, please enjoy. And to the students in the audience today and the public that is here, we're so grateful that you're here. This was presented and put together with you in mind so that everybody can have a broader understanding of what the role of music is in Ukrainian culture, and especially as we are living through these unprecedented times. So these concerts that we've seen so many now of them in support of Ukraine, popular music concerts, classical music concerts, folk music concerts throughout the United States, throughout the world, and especially among those who have been very involved in these happenings way before any of these events took place. We have been opening the concerts with the Ukrainian national anthem. We do this to honor the people who have lost their lives as part of this conflict, and those who continue to fight for what we believe in most. The words of the Ukrainian national anthem were written in 1863, and I'll just read them in English for the audience at home, and again, you can download the program if you are watching at home. Ukraine's glory has not died yet, nor her freedom. Upon us, my young brothers, fate shall yet smile. Our enemies will perish like dew in the morning sun, and we too shall rule, brothers, in our own land. Souls and bodies will lay down all for our freedom, and will show that we, brothers, are of the Cossacks' nation. Soul and bodies will lay down all for our freedom, and will show that we, brothers, are of the Cossack nation. So I'd like to invite a real Cossack to the to the podium here, and I'll reference him as a bandurist, as a kobzar, as a kozak. Everyone is, the spirit of the Ukrainian nation flows through this man, and I'll say a little bit more about him as we go through. But I'll just ask everybody to stand, and we will sing. And those who know the anthem, I know that some have learned this in class, then please sing along. Ще не вмерла в Україні ні слава, ні воля. Ще нам, браття українці, усміхнеться доля. Згинуть наші воріженьки, як роса на сонці, запануєм і ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу тілом ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття з козацького роду. Душу тілом ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття з козацького роду. Thank you so much. We begin with the anthem and we evoke the memories of the 19th century. And this anthem was written by a Ukrainian Catholic priest. Priests had a very important role in the villages. They were the intellectuals. They were the ones who led the cultural life in the villages. And you can actually see that in Pittsburgh. If you've been traveling down the many roads and not getting lost through our wonderful city, you'll see so many churches. And the reason why there are so many churches is because those who came from what is now Western Ukraine, they really stayed together as they were working in the steel mills and they were working in the coal mines. The church was the center of the cultural universe. The 19th century in Ukraine really brings forth a consciousness of trying to rebel and move against all of the oppression in the Russian Empire, also in the Austrian Empire. Remember that Ukraine was between different empires. So what we have now as the country of Ukraine, the western parts were in the Austrian rule and the eastern parts were in the Russian Empire. In the Russian Empire, Ukrainians were serfs. And there's a lot of comparison when we talk about serfdom and slavery. The idea behind serfdom is that wherever you're born, you can't move away from that village. And Taras Shevchenko was born a serf. He was bought out of serfdom and received an education. And when you look at his prolific makings, you have art, you have poetry, and many, many in Ukraine will be able to recite his poetry by heart. So the theme of Taras Shevchenko will frame this first part of the program. We'll have music by Mykola Lysenko, and then of course we will move to Lesia Ukrainka, who is also one of the main poets of Ukraine who brings forth this Ukrainian consciousness. Enjoy.
Мені однаково, чи буду я жить в Україні, чи ні. Чи хто згадає, чи забуде мене в снігу на чужині, однаковісінько мені. В неволі виріс між чужими, і неоплаканий своїми в неволі, плачучи, умру, і все з собою заберу. Малого сліду не покину на нашій славній Україні, на нашій не своїй землі. І не пом'яне батько з сином, не скаже синові: молись, молися, сину, за Вкраїну, його замучили колись. Мені однаково, чи буде той син молитися, чи ні. Та не однаково мені, як Україну злії люди присплять лукавії вогні і її окраденою збудять. Ох, не однаково мені. Тарас Григорович Шевченко, 1847 рік, в казематі.
It does not touch me, not a whit, if I live in Ukraine or no, if men recall me or forget, lost as I am in foreign snow. Touches me not the slightest whit. Captive to manhood I have grown, in strangers' homes, and by my own, unmourned, a weeping captive still. I'll die, all that is mine, I will, bear off, let not a trace remain. In our own glorious Ukraine, our own land, yet a stranger's rather, and speaking with his son, no father, will recall nor bid him pray. Pray, son, of old for our Ukraine. They tortured all his life away. It does not touch me, not a whit. Whether that son will pray or no, but it does touch me deep if knaves, evil rogues lull our Ukraine asleep and only in the flames. Let her, all plundered, wake again. That touches me with deepest pain. Taras Shevchenko, The Fortress.
Yeah.
Контра спем сперо. Гетьте, думи, ви хмари осінні, то ж тепера весна золота, чи то так у жалю в голосінні проминуть молодії літа? Ні, я хочу крізь сльози сміятись, серед лиха співати пісні, без надії таки сподіватись, жити хочу, геть думи сумні. Я на вбогім, сумнім перелозі буду сіять барвисті квитки, буду сіять квітки на морозі, буду лить на них сльози гіркі. І від селістих гарячих розтане та кора льодовая, міцна. Може, квіти зійдуть і настане ще й для мене весела весна. Я на гору круту, крем'яную, буду камінь важкий підіймать, і, несучи вагу ту страшную, буду пісню веселу співать. Вдовгу, темною нічку невидну, не столю ні на хвильку очей. Все шукатиму зірку провідну, ясну владарку темних ночей. Так, я буду крізь сльози сміятись, серед лиха співати пісні, без надії таки сподіватись, буду жити, геть думи сумні. Леся Українка, 1890 рік.
Thoughts away, you heavy clouds of autumn. For now, springtime comes, agleam with gold. Shall thus in grief and wailing for ill fortune, all of the tale of my young years be told? No, I want to smile through tears and weeping, sing my songs where evil holds its sway. Hopeless, a steadfast hope forever keeping, I want to live, you thoughts of grief, away. O poor sad fallow land, unused to tilling, I'll sow blossoms, brilliant in hue, also blossoms where the frost lies, chilling, I'll pour bitter tears on them as dew. And those burning tears shall melt, dissolving all that mighty crust of ice away. Maybe blossoms will come up, unfolding, singing springtime too for me someday. Up the flinty steep and craggy mountain, a weighty, ponderous boulder I shall raise, and bearing this dread burden, a resounding song I'll sing, a song of joyous praise. In the long, dark, ever viewless nighttime, not one instant shall I close my eyes. I'll seek ever for the star to guide me, she that reigns bright, mistress of dark skies. Yes, I'll smile, indeed, through tears and weeping, sing my songs where evil holds its sway. Hopeless, a steadfast hope forever keeping, I shall live, you thoughts of grief, away. Lesia Ukrainka.
Thank you so much for such wonderful renderings. If we could just have another round of applause for that incredible soprano. And Dr. Katie Manukyan, who had the time to practice, who had the time to put this show together, and runs the institute that you're all enrolled in. So congratulations, and thank you again to Rob Frankenberry. We're going to hear, and Jake and Tetyana, we're going to hear so many wonderful things as we continue through this program. So we're moving into a darker period in this middle section of the program. We're going to be talking about dissidence. Dissidence, to dissent, to vocalize one's opinion against the government. This was very dangerous to do in the Soviet Union, and we see that it's very dangerous to do in Russia today. Those who are opposing the war are ending up in prison, and there's quite a bit of serious repercussion for those who are going against the regime. So to the dissidents of the 1960s, they're also known as the Shostodesятniki, and we're going to hear about Vasil Stus, who was imprisoned in a Soviet labor camp. He died from a hunger strike that he was on. Very tragic fate, but also when you look at the resilience in the words and in the art that comes through, we'll also hear it in Lina Kostenko's words as well, herself also a dissident. So in this section, I will turn this over to Dr. Victoria Yuharian, and she will walk us through the information for this.
Thank you so much, Adriana. Can you hear me? Great. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. And this is a very important topic for me. I was at the Museum of the Dissidents, Shestidesiatniki Museum in Kiev. They have unbelievable archives. As you can imagine, the generation of the 60s, the artists, the poets, the writers who believed after the denunciation of the cult of Stalin that it was possible to have freedom of speech, and were all prosecuted. At some point I had projected the map of Ukraine. It had photos of everyone who died in the Gulag or were arrested. And the ones who have survived are dying now. So the museum was receiving unbelievable number of items and manuscripts, but right now, even their archives are in jeopardy. Everything is packed, and they don't even have everything listed to be able to save. It's a heartbreaking topic. Vasily Stus, you can see even when he was in labor camps, he continued writing. And I spoke actually to his son, who still cannot forgive his father for being so nonconformist, because when the borders loosened up and his classmates could go to Yugoslavia, he couldn't, because he was a son of the enemy of the state. So Vasily Stus, for me, like a Ukrainian Mandelstam, right, who paid with the price of his life for his beliefs, and somehow maintained his dignity in his poetry. The poem that I will read to you today by Vasily Stus is dedicated to another representative of this dissident movement of the 60s, Alla Gorskaya. So when Robert played his Taras in the piano piece in the memory of Taras Shevchenko, I had projected a glass installation. Actually, can we go back? And I would love to show, so this one, I just want to say a few words about this piece, so the poem will make much more sense to you if you know also Alla Gorskaya's faith. So in 1964, there was a competition in Ukraine because they wanted to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Taras Shevchenko. There was a wide competition, and the artists that won this competition were Alla Gorskaya, Lyudmila Semikina, and Apayas Zalivacha, whose painting is actually on our program. So when this was done on sketches, it passed censorship. And this piece was originally installed in 1964 in the Kiev National University. So now, when it was on paper, it was perfectly innocuous, because Taras Shevchenko during the Soviet period was presented as this, folk grandpa, somebody who just couldn't be politically dangerous, right? But then when they installed it, the dean, the day when this was so not near the window, and when the light came in, it completely changed the image. So please take a look, right? Because Taras Shevchenko in the middle, when light comes in, first of all of Ukraine appears behind bars. Some of you might pick up some religious motifs that were, of course, not allowed under the Soviet regime, right? It looks like a triptych. And you have the Madonna, right? And he seems to be holding not just a book, but a knife under certain angles, right? So it looked so dangerous that the dean destroyed this piece with a sledgehammer the first day it was installed. And they faked the documents post factum so that only the artists would be prosecuted and not the university administration. The museum had it recreated. And once again, now even the recreation is in jeopardy. And Alla Gorskaya, who was one of the main artists, this beautiful, yeah, she's coming up. That's her, Alla Gorskaya. She was called the soul of the dissident movement of 60s. Now, what was so special about her is that she could have had a very glamorous life. Her father he worked in the Davzhenko, and so he had a very high position in the film industry, right? And he was so well known that while her friends were being arrested, if they touched her, it would be a scandal. So for a while, they couldn't, but she was very outspoken. Anyway, so in 1970, she gets a phone call from her father-in-law, who says, Alla, please come pick up your sewing machine. And then she disappears. Her friends and husband go looking for her, and they find her dead body in the basement of the father-in-law, okay? And the father-in-law dead near the train station. Official version, he was so embarrassed by her political activism that he murdered her. This healthy, 40-something-year-old young woman, and he was an old, feeble man. And moreover, her friends found a piece of artificial mustache in the basement. So it's quite clear that what the KGB agents were doing, right? And then they also forced her husband to sign the documents to admit the official version because they had a 10-year-old son, and they said that they will blame him both for the murders of the wife and his father if he didn't sign. So the poem that I will read to you is written by Vasily Stus, dedicated to the memory of Alla Gorskaya, okay? He has quite many poems, but I'm only learning Ukrainian, so I've chosen a brief, heartbreaking one. This is another Simonenko. He was considered the son of the 6 Years movement. He was beaten so viciously near a train station that then he died also from injuries. Okay, so let's have Alla Gorskaya behind me. So maybe this one or this one. That's her with her son. Okay. Ярі, душе, ярі, а не ридай. У білій стужі сонце України. А ти шукай червону тінь калини на чорних водах. Тінь її шукай. Де жменька нас? Малесенька шопта лише для молитов і сподівання. Усім нам смерть судилася зарання. Бо калинова кров така ж крута, вона така ж терпка, як в наших жилах. У сивій завирусі голосинь. Ці грона болю, що падуть в глибинь, безсмертною бідою окошились. Thank you so much. And should I read the translation? Yes? Okay. I'll read the translation as well. It's just a literal one, so if you give me. So it says, leap, my soul, or spring, right? Spring, but do not weep. The sun of Ukraine is in the white cold. And you go search for the red shadow of viburnum on black waters. Look for its shade where there are a handful of us. Just a few tiny whispers, only for prayers and hope. We were all predestined to die early, because viburnum blood is just as strong, just as bitter as in our veins. In a gray blizzard of lamentations, these clusters of pain fall into the depths and settle in immortal grief. Thank you so much. That was so beautiful. Thank you. This next poet, Tyana, is a contemporary poet born in 1982 in Odessa. She usually writes in Russian. Her poetry collection that came out in 2018 is titled «Всё дано», and because of a kind of play with words, it also becomes «Всё дно», which to the best of my ability I translate into English as everything is given up, in parentheses, because it has that dual meaning of everything you already have, yet everything is abyss, kind of underground. Many actually consider her to be one of the most important living poets. For example, Dmitry Bykov, the outspoken Russian dissident writer, while I was teaching at the University of Pittsburgh in 2018, he was poisoned by the same people that poisoned Navalny. That's how kind of against the regime he is. And Dmitry Bykov considers Tyana to be creating this new mythology of Odessa. Because Odessa, right, we know that cities like St. Petersburg, that's considered to be the center of literature and madness. Odessa is also a center of literature and also freedom. Freedom, rebellion, humor, sarcasm. So, and there's so many, they have this incredible museum of literature, and so many writers are connected to Odessa, even Alexander Pushkin, who lived there for 13 months. And Tyana actually carries uncanny resemblance to Anna Akhmatova, who was also born in Odessa and wrote during the siege of Leningrad. Anyways, so I'm going to read to you one of her very recent poems written on June 22nd of this year in Ukrainian, right? And I've talked to her quite a bit how, right, if being bilingual in Ukraine was such a good thing before, all of a sudden they're all faced with this really painful decisions where all of a sudden the language you speak becomes the language of the enemy as well. And anyway, I won't go into that. You can think and read on your own. But I would love to share with you this beautiful poem that she wrote on her way back to Ukraine after she moved her daughters to Prague, and she's in Ukraine currently. She was in Lviv on her way back to Odessa when she wrote this poem called «Tell me, brother». Yeah? Розкажи мені, брате, як то воно вмирати? Вип'єм чаю чи кави і розказуй, мені цікаво. Ниде стритися нам, тож розпитую просто неба. Бо усі говорять від серця, ніхто від тебе. Брате мій, із Одеси, Херсону, Івано-Франківська, сум дівочий, сльоза дитяча, туга батьківська, 40, 30, 18, Боже, річний. Ти хотів би, щоб ми зберегли ворогу обличчя? Мабуть, так. Бо у кожного цього скота і ката має бути обличчя, щоб точно його впізнати. Брате мій, я готуюсь не жити, а просто бути. Бо не маю такої помсти, тієї спокути, щоб зробити, як було, вже не буде. І в цьому сенсі ми обидва загибли. Ти зовсім, а я в процесі. На твоєму шляху пелюстки, на моєму пастки. І тобі не піднятись, мені ж заборона впасти. Я сміливо кажу, мій брате, бо ти не проти. Мовчазни, мої браття. Земли бо набрали в роти, тільки плачуть дощем, тільки вітром горнуть до себе і шепочуть. Жива? Живи. Ну чого ще треба? Треба? чогось такого, чого не бува, гадаю, неземної любові, сторіччя земного раю. Треба якось відмити цей бруд і усю отруду. Та не буде. Та не буде цього, хоч повинно бути. Тож скажи мені, брате, як то воно вмирати? Маю знати. Okay, so that's the Ukrainian part, and I'll do my best with the kind of literal English translation. So tell me, brother, what does it feel like to die? Let's drink some tea or coffee and tell me. I'm really interested. We have nowhere to meet, so I'm simply asking the sky, because everyone speaks from the heart, but from you, no one. My brother from Odessa, Kherson, Ivano-Frankivsk, sorrow of a girl, a tear of a child, concerned parents, 40 years old, 30 years old, 18, my God, a year old. Would you like us to preserve the face of the enemy? Perhaps. Because each one of those scoundrels and executioners deserve features to be definitely recognized. My brother, I'm getting ready to not live, but simply be. Because I have no revenge and no redemption to make it as it were. It will never be like that. And in this sense, we're both dead. You completely, and I'm in the process. On your path, there are flowers. On mine, traps. And you cannot get up. And I'm forbidden to fall. I am courageously calling you brother because you don't mind. My brothers are silent because their mouths are full of earth. And only with the rain do they cry. Only with the wind do they turn and whisper, alive? Live. What else do you need? What I need, I think, is something that never happened. Let me guess. Unearthly love. A century of earthly paradise. For there is a need to wash away all this dirt and all this poison. But it will not be. Although it really should. It really should. So tell me, brother, what is it like to die? I need to know. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Victoria. We really appreciate your reading the poems in Ukrainian, and I personally appreciate that you study Ukrainian. Okay. Ліна Костенка. Крила. А й правда, крилатим ґрунту не треба. Землі немає, то буде небо. Немає поля, то буде воля. Немає пари, то будуть хмари. В цьому, напевно, правда пташина. А як же людина? А що ж людина? Живе на землі, сама не літає, а крила має, Вони, ті крила, не з пуху пір'я, а з правди, чесноти і довір'я. У кого з вірності у кохання, у кого з вічного поривання, у кого з щирості до роботи, у кого з щедрості на турботи, у кого з пісні, або з надії, або з поезії, або з мрії. Людина нібито не літає, а крила має, а крила має.
The Wings, Lena Kostenko, 1958. I wonder, feathered beings don't need the ground. If there's no land, there will be clouds. If there's no field, there will be freedom. If there's no love, there will be heaven. This is probably true for birds, but what about humans? What about humans? Not able to fly, they live on the ground, but they have wings. They have wings. Those wings aren't made of feathers or fluff. They're made of truth, integrity, trust. Some wings are made of passionate love, some of perpetual aspiration. Others are made of hard work and effort. Some others are filled with sincerity and care. Some are made of song and hope, made of poetry, made of dream. Humans seem not to be able to fly, but they have wings. They have wings.
Appreciate you sticking with us. What you see on stage here is a contrast between a very expensive instrument, pianos can range from 20,000 to 100,000. Once I had the privilege of making the mistake of hammering some chopsticks on a $150,000 Börsendorfer downtown, and the person who was selling pianos kindly just turned the price tag and I walked away. But so that was, you can tell just how complex that instrument is. You can also tell how Professor Manukyan was, it's a trained voice. It really takes quite a long time to develop that type of command over the voice. Roger Zahab, our orchestra conductor at the University of Pittsburgh, proficient on numerous instruments, and again, the violin being traditionally the instrument closest to the voice, that singing, that melodic interpretive style, again, that takes time, and this is where the emotions come in. With musicians, we're very passionate, and this is what we relate to the audience, and your energy brings it back to us. What we see beneath the piano, or just to the side in front of the piano now, are priceless instruments. Okay, so this is different, expensive and priceless. Priceless in the sense because our guest from Ukraine, Jurij Fedynskyj, handmade them. So we have 3 instruments here. We have a kobza, we have a torban, and a bandura. The reason why they're also priceless is because Jurij is one of the very few people who began to make instruments after the fall of the Soviet regime. He moved from North Carolina, where he was born, and there's an interesting story there. He has Ukrainian heritage, but was born in North Carolina, moved back to Ukraine to a village near Kyiv, Krachkivka. And it's become a mecca for people who want to learn to make their own instruments, and people who are interested in folk music. And Jurij has been really bringing that to audiences around the world. So I'll just say a few things about Jurij, because I've actually known him for many years now, for more than 20 years at least. When he was still one of the younger members of the Ukrainian bandurist chorus and coming to our house where some of the rehearsals were taking place. My father was also part of this chorus. And when I learned that Jurij moved to Ukraine and had just picked up and gone, I was in awe. I thought it was just wonderful that people were doing that. At that time, it wasn't that easy to do. So living in Ukraine, it's not like now you have the internet and we're able to really, do everything. At that time when he was moving there, there were some rough times. This was really at the time at the height of political oppression. Georgi Gungadze, one of the renowned journalists, was killed in Ukraine at that time. This was still at the time of corruption and numerous revolutions. So Jurij and I have lived through the Orange Revolution of 2014, the Euromaidan of 2013, then the war, the Revolution of Dignity of 2014, and now I've been shamelessly, I've been following you on Facebook as you've been in the middle of this war. So what Jurij has been doing, he has been moving from bomb shelter to bomb shelter, and he has been playing for all the people that have been hiding out in the metros. So we've seen all of those images. We've seen the people, the millions of people that have been, whose lives have been disrupted. There are 13 million people in Ukraine who are internally displaced, who are refugees. The numerous families whose lives have been uprooted, whose homes have been destroyed. They have been hiding from the bombs in the metros and in other bomb shelters, and Jurij and his friends and fellow musicians have been live streaming, and again, just bringing us into that moment. And I just want to acknowledge, Jurij, your strength of soul, and you will hear you will feel it as you see him on stage. But when I heard that he was just going to be just nearby, he was actually, the plan wasn't really going to stop in Pittsburgh, but to just drive by, because what he's been doing has been traveling around Ukraine, playing for people. and he has been now in North America and moving from city to city and sharing the stories. And I just thought, we have to do this. And it just coalesced, and it was meant to be that you were going to be on our stage today. So thank you, Jurij. And we look forward, we're honored, and I hand over the stage to you. Please, you have a half an hour, but please do as long as you would like. And I know that he and I know that he will be playing different genres, so I'll let him introduce his repertoire.
Fantastic event. I only found out, actually, was it this morning? Yeah, that this wouldn't be, my solo program, which actually the full program is 5 hours. Is anybody in a rush to get home? Okay, half an hour, that's going to be tough, but I'll do my best. And fantastic to see in contrast, not just with what I do with the kobzar and torban playing tradition, but just in general, all this, noble Ukrainian poetry and music, which most Ukrainians don't know, which the West doesn't know, and to listen to it today in context with what is happening. People are asking, who are these Ukrainians? What do we know about them? We know nothing. Something to do with Russia, some province, the Ukraine, and now, in context, the music sounds a little bit different. Well, this is a extension of that same investigation. Who are Ukrainians? What is their mentality? What is their emotions? Through music, right? An international medium where you don't have to know what I say because it's sung. The emotions, the gestures, the spirit comes out, right? And just in general, the program which I have, this is, as Adriana said, Kozak Yurko. I'm not a Cossack. I've been very tempted to take the gun over these past many years, 8 years? But I've always decided that it's not my post. My post is preparing these instruments, right, this prohibited culture, the lost kobzars and torban players, this is what I do. But when the Maidans happened, the revolutions, what do we do as musicians? As Matt Schufield in Indiana, Plymouth said, we're musicians, we can't do a whole lot other than play music, right? What can we do? But just to realize what that is, and when folks during the war say, we don't have time for music, we have to dig trenches and build fortifications, right? We have to run or fight or flight. And I say, not this music. This is music specifically for today. That's what I do. And when I play this music other times, it's also very powerful. It's also very interesting to get to know Ukraine through the most serious of Ukrainian poets and musicians. But I found during the war, the ideal audience and the ideal time, the ideal place for such music, because this is music created to keep Ukraine Ukrainian and to keep it spiritually good. This is serious stuff, folks. All that we heard today, fantastic music. But this is a little bit earlier, right? The music we heard today, I think Lysenko was the earliest, and Shevchenko was the earliest poet. So I'll take you back a little bit earlier to about maybe Shevchenko's time. And I'll try not to talk too much because then I can't play so much. And I've got to do a lot of that happen. So this is called the bandura. What I'm singing about, it's just a general Ukrainian tune which the kobzars would have had. We actually have this tune from the one person who knew the kobzar tradition, Tetyana. All the rest were killed. So one person, right? And also, just in case I forget, the one person that played the torban, Franz Widort. One person, right? The last person who played the kobza, Stat Versailles. One person. So 3 people, 3 instruments. If there weren't these 3 people, we wouldn't have had anything to play on these instruments, right? So it's a lot of research work to be able to bring this back. You have to make instruments. You can't buy these. You can buy some, but they're as a musician, I like Steinways and Stradivarius. So I like good instruments. So 12 years of work, and now I have an instrument. Now I can learn how to play the instrument. Okay. So this is, what am I singing about? You have a brother and a sister, Tetyana and Jake. Okay. Yeah. And the brother goes through the meadows, down the valleys, and he sees his beautiful sister reaping the rye. In Ukraine, the women do a lot of the men's work. And what does Yakiv say? He says, "Oh, my wonderful sister, hello." You know, anything. What else would a good brother say? But what does Tetyana say? She does the worst thing. I'm sorry, Tetyana. Nothing worse. She does the worst thing a sister could do. She ignores him. Can you imagine your own kin ignoring you? How that would hurt. How that, you know, what could be the explanation for such a thing? This is the song, one of the central songs of this anti-war, right, peace programs, about how to finish the war and what we can do to bring a quick ending, or a quicker ending to the war. So what does Tetyana say? The brother, he says, "Wait a second, you know, what's up with that?" As they say in Pittsburgh. "Why are you ignoring me? You must become so proud." And she says, "No, I didn't recognize you as my brother through my tears." It's a very strange answer. What does Tetyana mean? Well, Yakiv's been in Lviv during the genocide of 33, and Tetyana's still alive. She speaks Russian now. But she's alive, and she's well, and she's doing her best. And we have this idea of how Ukraine is beating back the Russians. It's because we're unified. Finally, after 300 years, East is with West, and finally it's time for the Western Ukrainians to accept the Eastern Ukrainians, understand, of course they speak Russian. Thank God, we didn't live through such time. Or when you have the European Union that says, "We don't know Ukraine, you supported the communists. We don't know you. You don't share in our democratic values." And the Eastern European sister, Ukraine, says, "We were the free part of Europe when you were in your feudalist slaves, with your serfs and your kings and your queens, and your exploitation. We were the example. Maybe from Ukraine, Europe became a free continent," right? And the most difficult analogy, folks say, "Yuri, don't talk about this. We're not ready to deal with our Russian sister and what she's lived through and why she's behaving so uncivilized and inhuman." And when the Russian sister says to Ukraine, the Ukrainian brother, "They love you. The world loves you. The world supports you, gives you money and arms and prayers and everything you need to defeat us. But the world hates Russia today. They hate our government. They hate our system. They hate everything about us. They even hate Tchaikovsky. That's not right. He was Ukrainian." Don't touch Tchaikovsky. But he was a Tsarist. So Ukrainians say, that's it. And this is the key to ending the war. Putin has a trap. He says we're fascists. He says we're racist. It's not true. We're one of the most loving, pluralistic nations in the world we've had to be. Right? God has prepared us for a lot. And as Ukrainians, let's not fall in the trap. Let's not hate Russia. Let's not hate anybody. We're not hateful people. And people in the West who don't want nuclear war, let's not hate anybody also. When you get afraid, you start to hate, right? You start to say, who is this scoundrel? It's a trap. Because when you have hate plus hate, you have escalation. We don't want escalation. We want to end these things peacefully. And we don't hate Russia. We don't want to take them over. We don't want to steal their resources. We want to buy their resources, right? That's the American way. So let's pray for Ukraine, pray for Russia. You know what? I'll tell the truth. I'm not so worried about Ukraine because I know what'll happen. I have a conviction. Ukraine will be and is the leader of the free world. I worry about Russia. Who's going to help them? What's going to happen to them? And I foresee some very bloody times ahead, civil war and destruction. So we as Ukrainians will not hate our neighbor. It's not part of our mentality or our program. We're going to do our best to help them become a nice, democratic European country, get rid of their Moscow empire. It's time. And everything that we do, even the soldiers who are in the trenches, I tell them, if you're going to have to shoot, shoot for the feet. But if you can't do it, Don't kill out of hate, because when you kill out of hate, God doesn't protect us so much. And we want God to close our skies as well as NATO. This is the philosophy of pray and do whatever you can do. What does Jesus say? Through fasting and through prayer, that's how you get saved. And for anybody who's not on the front, make some sandwiches, maybe send some money, maybe go to Ukraine yourself, right? Just being there in your example that you're willing and not afraid of those bombs. They can't kill us all. So, half an hour, that's not a lot of time. As I go through the valley, will or will not I meet family?
Кажу їй, здрастуй, вона не одказала. Ой, чо ти, сестра, така горда стала? Кажу тобі, здрастуй, я, брате, здоров не казала, з дрібними слізьми тебе не пізнав. На чужу роботу тяжко нароблюся, та й прийду додому, я ще зажурюсь. Нічим натопити, нічим наварити, плачуть дрібні дітки, нічим накормити.
This is Yakiv. And as you can hear, these are very serious songs. That's what the Kobzars sang about. I like serious music. Who likes serious music? Everybody does. That's why you're here, right? We don't like that cheap pop stuff. We like pop, but very quality pop. So this is not pop. But it would have been, general folklore, but as the Kobzars would have played it, and not just playing it, but explaining it, right? This is our job. It's not just a musical tradition. It's a mission, right? These are blind, spiritual singers who played either the kobza or the bandura. They would go from village to village, from city to city in Ukraine, Russian-occupied Ukraine, directly after the free democratic Ukrainian state known as the Cossack Hetmanate was taken over by Peter the Not-So-Great. So the Kobzars came to existence about 1700 and existed into 1933 when they were all killed. Anybody see the film The Guide, Povadir? Okay, some folks in our group, the Kiev Kobzar Guilds, Elasyanin, this is our theme. And the Kobzars had a very serious work. Me coming to America, I've been 3 months in the war, but it came time to actually take my family home. We're going to be home on August 1st. My mom says it's crazy, but they can't kill us, right? I have certain convictions that it's not going to happen. But some people need to go home, right? We need to do our work. I have to do my ethno festival, Dravorode Kobzarsko. What, we're going to let Putin, stop our tradition? Of course not. But just in case the bomb just does happen to fall, right? When the bombs pass through Ukrainian territory, we get an air raid signal. It's audible from the next village over, Berezurka. So once we hear that signal, if that happens during the week or 2 week festival, formally it's 3 days, but usually it's about 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, I say, it's time to go home. Once the air raid sirens go, we run. We also have a bomb shelter. Everybody probably wouldn't fit, but we may be on Putin sites, and it is a risk, but we'll do what we do. Again, he can't kill us all. And soon he very well might die himself. That's much more probable. So this instrument is called a Baroque lute, right? A Ukrainian Baroque lute. Has anybody heard of the torban? Raise your hand. The Ukrainian Baroque lute. Okay, if you think that we're a farmer nation, listen to what the compositions and the poetry, and listen to these instruments. I'm not a great player. I'm studying to play. It's made to play very difficult works like Bach, Weiss, Bilhradsky. But do I want to do? I don't have time to do everything. I'm not going to do Mazeppa. No, but Shevchenko, we've heard some poetry. Neodnakovy Mani. That poem for me is right on and absolutely explains what's happening now. You have folks in Ukraine. Who are these folks? Do they have anything? Do they have any money? Do they have a car? Right? Do they have a life? Do they have a job? And a lot of people would probably say, no, we don't. But never will Putin take our land. What is that, right? Isn't that, why don't we just leave? Why don't we just flee and give the world some, some quiet, because we don't want escalation. But what is it? It's fearlessness. It's people who who put their friends and their family before they themselves. They have sympathy for one another. Ukrainian sympathy. It's a very good thing. So this is Shevchenko. I was recently in Zaporizhia on Easter. Anybody here from Zaporizhia, right? Where the Cossack siege was. The first time on it just kind of happened. We were just on the road. So it made sense to stop. They've taken 90% of Zaporizhia. That's a lot. It's a huge, huge state or oblast. But all the refugees who are fleeing, many of them stopped on the banks of Dnipro, just across the border in Zaporizhia, in a small village called Viskove. And a lady who has a wonderful park. She loves Shevchenko. She told me, interesting story, that Shevchenko didn't want to be buried in Kaniv. He wanted to be buried there, across from her gardens and her park, on the grave, on a Scythian grave, which you could actually see right across from the river. And it was very interesting information. Where we have the rapids, right? Porohi. There's no rapids in Kaniv, but okay, that's that. And as Shevchenko says, until I see the enemy of the blood going down the river, and I see a victory for Ukraine, and I see, this is my interpretation, that God did not forget about Ukraine. Until then, I don't know God. Was he an atheist? No, but he knew very well that, or hoped very much that at some point Ukraine would be free. And as I started this next song, I told the folks from the eastern regions who were there, let Shevchenko's spirit come from that side where the grave is to our side, right? And at that moment, a huge Ukrainian fighter jet goes right over our heads. So Shevchenko Zname. So this is Shevchenko's work. The first song I heard in the bandura, I was actually born in Indianapolis but grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina. My mom put on the records of the Ukrainian bandura chorus. Anybody hear of them? I played for the 2 years. I actually saw Adi at one of the rehearsals when we went to Pan Omilian's house. Fantastic time with the East Coast group. So, what does Shevchenko say? They actually say that Shevchenko wasn't just a poet, fantastic artist. You've seen some of his artworks in one of those slides. But some say he was even a torbanist. Have you heard this? It's not true. They mixed him with Vasil Shevchenko. But I'm sure Shevchenko would have loved to play a torban. And if he did play the torban, it would have sounded like this. Right, speculative reconstruction. We're a very creative nation. So what does he sing about? He compares Ukraine to a child. The black clouds, one from the Liman, right, from the Crimean region, another from across the field, maybe north of Kiev. Maybe this is a prophetic song. It is. And what does he say? Anybody see the little boy on Facebook crossing the border with his teddy bear and with his bag of candy? Anybody see that? And not a very happy expression on his face. That's what Shevchenko would have sung about today in Pittsburgh. But I sing the last verse in the past tense because today the Cossack children know who God is. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been on the front. That's a spiritual motivation, right? To risk your life for your friend, as Jesus says, the biggest gift you can give. So welcome a new generation of Cossacks. Slava Ukraini! So again, very serious songs. You can tell I'm crying when I sing these, right? This was part of the tradition. The Ukrainians actually had a genre called the cry, and it was a genre of the kobzars, people who had no eyes, right? You can imagine a sighted player playing these, but you know, I could do some other job. I could get a job, you know, maybe sweeping the floor, or maybe working in the library. You know, what am I going to be playing these songs which a blind beggar should be singing? But I'm going blind little by little. Right, my eyesight is going. The epic tale, right? A plach was very similar to the Duma. I'm not talking about Duma Moy Duma. This is Shevchenko. That was Shevchenko. This is the Kobzar, right? People have associations with Taras Shevchenko, this national poet, being a Kobzar. He was not. He was a great artist, a great poet, but a Kobzar was a blind spiritual singer who traveled village to village playing these songs. This is the center of the Ukrainian Kobzar repertoire, and also very fitting that we hear some Lysenko today. Lysenko wasn't just an incredible pianist and composer and cultural activist and conductor. He was one of the early folklorists. We have photos of this instrument, probably because of his photography. But the main thing is that we have the song we're going to play because he jotted it down. This instrument is made from a photograph. It's hard to make, you know, you can imagine a Steinway, oh, that would be a great. But even these instruments, it's not so simple. But, you know, they're getting better and better. But the only songs we have are Versailles from Lysenko. And Lysenko, the reason that he was interested, because he saw that, you know, Tchaikovsky and Rimsky-Korsakov, Mussorgsky were having all the fun, having this, you know, this wonderful Russian school of music. I love it. You know, I'll be serious. Putin is, you know what, but I like the music. But Lysenko, even listening to it today, I got the first recording, the first real recording from the Povedier, the young boy in Ann Arbor. His father is a pianist, his mom's a violinist. They got the recording. But to hear it live, fantastic. Wonderful works. Why don't we know this? Rachmaninoff is, as Lida Kostenko said about Kozatsky, about Bregovich and Kozatsky. He can smoke the cigarette outside, right? Rachmaninoff too, he can take a break. This is good stuff. And about Shevchenko. Oh. So this is a Duma, an epic tale. What am I singing about? It's 12 minutes. I don't want to bore you to death. But the emotions of our ancestors. A song created to help people on the front do what they have to do it, and do it the right way. So we have a field of battle. Everybody's has died except for one Kozak. This is a song, a Duma, an epic song about the last Kozak, Khvedr bez Ridni. He has no children. And what is Khvedr thinking as he's dying on that field of battle? He's not thinking, am I going to heaven or hell, as most of us might be thinking, will there be an afterlife? He's thinking, who will take my Cossack boots and defend Ukraine? So he looks around and he sees his student, right? Oh, his squire, Jura Yarema. You're Yakiv, this is Yarema, right? A little different. And he asks his squire, you're not a Cossack. Are you a Cossack? He's not a Cossack. Can you ride a horse? Can you recite wonderful Ukrainian poetry? Okay, Mykhailo Shemaimo. It's good. So he asks his serf, prove it to me. Get on that horse and ride. And he can ride a little bit. He says, wonderful. I'm going to give you everything. My nice Kobza, my Turban, my nice Kobzar mobile, the Toyota Prius. Okay, I get kind of carried away. No, he gives us his sword, his 2 horses, everything he has, his livestock. And this is not a poor Cossack. In those days, like Mazeppa, they had pens encrusted with diamonds, right? When Kiev was the biggest city in Europe. So he says, I'm going to give you the Cossack blessing. Go and find the Cossack Sich, maybe in Zaporizhia, and ask them, bow before God and the Ottoman and all the Cossacks to accept you into the Cossack ranks and prepare you to defend Ukraine. Yarema does this, but when he gets to the Sich, the general, right, Batko, Koshevi Ottoman, he says, you're not a Cossack. You can't even speak Ukrainian fluently. You certainly killed your master and stole his banduras and kobzas, or well, okay, stole his horses and his swords and everything. You're a criminal. You know, we're going to put you to death. And so Yerema says, this is not true. And he testifies that I honestly will become a Cossack. I can even listen to a Duma for 12 minutes without any shaking from side to side. That's what we're singing about. This is a memorial Duma. And I saw just up the road the memorial to those who died in battle. This is why we sing this song, to remember the dead, but to pray that a new rank of defenders of the faith, of the country, right? Being a Ukrainian is really a religion. It's not just being a citizen. To be Ukraine during all these times, you have to have some serious moral dignity. So the general says, what is Yerema? Yerema tells the general, help me bury my master today. And the general says, I'll do it. So 750 Cossacks, they go to the field of battle. They clean the Cossack. They put him in a silk death cloth. They dig with swords a burial pit. They make a big burial mound, put a flag on the top, and eat dried bread, something like the Eucharist, but comparing the dead Cossacks to Christ who gave his life for us, and Cossacks who today give their life for the free world and the world in general, and Ukraine especially. And every Duma ends with a prayer. These are spiritual epic songs. You could compare them to the parables of Jesus, with the Ukrainian scenario, and a scenario specifically about what's happening today. So serious works, a meditation. They were also called the Zaporozhsky Psalms, right? The Psalms of King David, right? Maker of the Mesopotamian harp and players. So that's what I'm singing about. 12 minutes. It's not so bad, but the idea is to think about how you can serve your country and other countries who are protecting your country, like Ukraine.
Та через мечу положено, тайне єдиного тіла козацького, молодецького, живо не остановлено. Ведор бездольні, осічні та порубані, тайна рані смертельні не змагає. А коли його Джура Ярема, ей та промешкає, то ведор бездольні, ведор плотні, ей та промовляє словами, та й обілється гірко сльозами. Ей, Джуро Яремо, а добре щіпай, та на коня сідай, та перед мною повертай, а нехай буде знати, а чи готовенький будеш проміжок за камінь побувати. Ей, та добре дбає, а на коня сідає, ой, та перед ним повертає. Ведор плачоний, ведор плотний, ей, та промовляє словами, та й обілється гірко сльозами. Ой, та дарую Якові при смерті своєї, коня воробно, ей, а другого білогриво, і тягеля червоні, обільно коміра, золотом гаптовані, і шаблю булатную, і щал сміттятную, обдаруж тебе, Господи милосердно. Ой, що не летай кому, гей, та моя худоба буде поставати, та він буде за мене, Господи милосердного прокаті. Гей, Джуро Яремо, добре щіпай, на коня сідай, та їде понад лугом, а за лугом, та й понад Дніпром славу твою. Як у шкала будуть, гей, спринися, а як лебеді ячать, ой, то ті озовися, а як козаки йдуть Дніпром славу твою, ой, то ті озовися. Шличок на копію і складай, ой, та сам низеньку клоняй. Наперед, Господи Богу, і батові кошовому, отаману військовому, і всьому товариству кревному, сердечному. Рема, ей, та добре дбає, та на коня сідає, ой, та понад ломбазом проїжджає, та й понад Дніпром славу твою, ей, та козаків зустрічає, шлич на копію і складає, ой, та сам низеньку клоняє. Наперед, Господи Богу, і Маркові кошовому, отаману військовому, і всьому товариству кревному, сердечному. Ой, то батько кошовий, отаман військовий, а словами промовляє, ей, Джуро Яремо, та не своїми шликами гуляєш, і не свої тяля червоні, от біло коміра, золотом гатовані, не свої шапку лятую, не свою піщаль сліп'яну маєш, а десь ти свого пана убив, або і стрелив, або ж ти молодого душі збавив. Артема, і та словами промовляє, я свого пана, а мій вір стрелив, а мій молодого душі я не збавив. А мій пан лежить у лузі, базалузі, постріляні та порубані, та й на рані смертельні не змагає. Та прошу я вас, все ніжаючи, у люк базалук прибуваті, ой, та тіло козацьке, молодецьке є, поховаті, та звірі птиці на поталу не даті. Отаман військовий, та добре він бавтав суботу, і все місто для 50 козаків вибирав. Та в суботу прилетіли о 4-й полуночній годині, у люк базу козаків веселяв, ой, де не прибували, тіл козацьке молодецьке знаходжали, на чорний Китай купляли, ой, та тіло козацьке молодецьке є. Обмивали, Потолько пали и шапки там приходили переносили. Та високу могилу висипали и прапорок у головах устромляли. Та премудрому лицарю славу а тим його поминали, щоб себе мати зілентіни військовими One last song. Is that okay? I know it's been an epic concert, but this is one I always play, and I could maybe not play, but I think it would be proper. There was a very nice graphic of Kozak Mamai, a very a beautiful Oko Vita. What does Oko Vita mean? Anybody know? Horuka. Oh, it's on the flask. Okay, Oko Vita. I'll have to think about what that means. So, we had a very interesting invitation to perform for the dead. The mass grave, maybe you've seen it on Facebook, one of the most horrible photos. But once we actually got there, interesting that it wasn't so bad, right? Actually, this is the thing on Facebook, it's out of context, right? It's a photo, and that preserved a lot of what is certainly going on. I mean, terrible, horrible things. But actually being at the grave, it was, maybe it was something to do with my state of mind, or me and my students, that I didn't cry. I had a smile on my face, right? And I made a video and I put it out, and I felt bad that maybe I shouldn't have had we have this song, Vichna Pamit, where it's very sad. This is the song I sang for the dead, right? But thinking about it now, it's a proper song. We have the term rest in peace. It's not die and goodbye, it's rest in peace, right? It's because in the Christian world, and not only other spiritual faiths, believe in resurrection, that heroes don't die, and if you do really good things, then you live in paradise. So this is a song for those who were martyred, right? They're no longer in pain. Why do we have funerals? To have closure, right? To say goodbye, rest in peace, Vichna Pamyat, eternal memory. This is John Dowland. They also often compared death with something like a deep sleep, right? A rest from the turmoil of the world and the tragedies which these people certainly would have seen. And to wish them and to pray for them that they do find a wonderful reward for their torture. Why were these folks killed? I think God thought the world needs to know what the Moscow Empire is. And we've seen it, right? Is the war over? No. Then let's not forget that, one of the worst, potentially worst times of this world has ever known might be still sizzling there in the east. Let's
do this to the end, right? 20% of our country is still under occupation. We don't know what's happening there. We know what's happening in Bucha because we were able to go in there. In the eastern territories, we don't know. The journalists are killed that go in there. So how many of those people are being tortured and killed and raped and pillaged? They're eating the dogs, right? If you don't care for humanity, think about the dogs. That the paws are nailed to a railing and cut off because the dogs are eaten. The dogs are, people say that was the Russians, the Mongolians. I don't know. It's pretty terrible stuff. So let's do this to the end. And what do? We pray. God can do those things which we can't. He can even deal with the wiring of the bombs, right? To where Putin puts his paw on that red button, nothing happens. Like in the Olympics in Sochi, right? It'll happen. Putin does not decide when the end of the world comes. God decides. And Putin is not God. He's the Antichrist. He's a scoundrel, certainly. So let's pray God saves the world. John Dowland, weep you no more, sad fountains, what need you flow so fast? Even the snowy mountains heaven's sun doth gently waste. Listen to the poetry, ideas of peace and reconciliation and deep sleep.
Reconciling, a rest that peace he gets. Doth not the sun rise smiling when fair at heaven he sets? Rest you now, rest sad eyes, melt not in while they lie sleeping, while they lie sleeping softly, now
And let's not let it happen again. Slava Ukraina, z nami Bog. Thank you, Adriana. Thank you, fantastic musicians. A lot of the stuff I've never heard, even a lot of the poetry. So thank you. This is a fantastic, fantastic way of defending what you love and who you love. So bravo, bravo.
I think everybody's in a different emotional state listening to this. When Yuri says Slava Ukraini, glory to Ukraine, the response is Heroyam Slava, glory to the heroes. So if you could, could we just say that? So Slava Ukraini,
Slava Ukraina!
Heroyam Slava.
З нами Бог, і ми з ними. God be with us, and that we would be with him.
Okay. All right, so why don't we invite Tetyana and our student will finish the program, and we'll ask you if you can stay, keep the instruments on the stage for those who want to come and look at it as we finish up, and also you and I will return to the stage at the end.
Wow, yes, thank you. It was amazing. Леся Українка, 1893 рік. Скрізь плач, і стогін, і ридання, несмілі поклики, слабі, на долю марні нарікання, і чола схилені в журбі. Над давнім лихом України жалкуєм, тужим в кожний час. З плачем ждемо тієї години, коли спадуть кайдани з нас. Ті сльози розтроюдять рани, загоїтись їм не дадуть, заржавіють від сліз кайдани, самі ж ніколи не спадуть. На що даремні і скорботи? Назад нема нам вороття, берімось краще до роботи, змагаймось за нове життя.
Through crying, groaning, and weeping come timid, weak appeals, useless complaints about fate, and foreheads bowed in sorrow. Over an old misfortune of Ukraine, we regret and moan all the time. We are waiting with tears for these hours when the shackles fall from us. These tears upset the wounds. They will not allow them to heal. The shackles will get rusty with tears. They would never fall on their own. Why useless sorrows? We have no way back. Let's better get to work. Let's fight for a new life. Lesia Ukrainka, 1890.
Okay, so those who have made it to the end, I think one of the things that we acknowledge that we are witnesses. So everything that we are seeing here and the world is looking, everyone asks, how can we help? Well, first you can donate. We are, again, just to go back to the point of the concert and the goal, we are raising money for two organizations. The first is Razum, which means together. This is a humanitarian organization. They've been helping people in Ukraine. So Razum, and then the Kyiv School of Economics, which is very close to Pitt's heart. Professor Timofey Milovanov, who is a professor of economics here at Pitt, is also the president of Kyiv School of Economics. So what we're going to do is take this evening and end it in major mode. Okay, so major mode means that's the uplifting, melodic height. And we're going to join everybody in song. There is one song that unites everybody in the war, and it's called Oi u luzі червона калина. And I think that some of you may have already heard this or have learned this in class. So I'm going to ask you to sing along with this. Okay, so if you look towards the end of your program, and this will be our last hurrah for the evening. You can read it either in Ukrainian if you know how to read the Ukrainian, or if you watch the transliteration at the bottom. But I'll read the English translation. This is a 1914 song that by chance became the hymn of the events in Ukraine. So, oh, in the meadow a red kalina of Verbyrum has bent low. For some reason, our glorious Ukraine is in sorrow, and we'll take that red kalina and we'll raise it up, and we shall cheer up our glorious Ukraine. Hey, 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 that you always have to put a hey into a good song. And we'll take that red kalina and we'll raise it up and we'll cheer up our glorious Ukraine, hey, hey. And the story of this, this is what Pink Floyd has recorded, and if you actually put this, the Red Verberum into YouTube, hundreds of videos will now come up from everyone from soldiers to people, and so our recording will also join the global rendering of this. All right, so why don't we play this next video? This is Andriy Khlyvlyuk. He's a singer of boombox. What happened is he was on tour in the United States. The war broke out. He went back to Ukraine, enlisted in the territorial defenses, and he was recorded singing this one song. I don't know the exact details of how it came to be that he was recorded, but this song went viral. What's interesting is he changed the melody just a little bit on the hey heys, and this is the rendition that everybody sings. So let's hear him so you could hear the melody, and then we'll sing it all together, okay? Oh, I'm sorry, I did not do the lyrics with you in Ukrainian, so let me just quickly say after me. So, oi u luzі червона калина, ой у лузі червона калина похилилася, похилилася. Чогось наша славна Україна зажурилася. Чогось наша славна Україна зажурилася, а ми тую червону калину підіймемо. А ми тую червону калину підіймемо, а ми нашу славну Україну гей-гей розвеселимо. А ми нашу славну Україну гей-гей розвеселимо. So we'll make it happy. Okay, let's listen to it and then
Ой, у лузі червона калина похилилася, чогось наша славна Україна зажурилася, а ми тую червону калину підіймемо, а ми нашу славну Україну
So this was played on Channel 24 television in Ukraine, and what happened is this became so popular, and everyone just wanted to just listen to this song, and from 1914, but you can still see that it's so relevant. What happened is that a South African DJ by the name of the Kifnis sampled this, and so we're going to sing along just to this last version, and it's the same words over and over, so as you start to get into it, you can join, and we'll end the program. So before we do listen to this last song, I just want to thank everybody again for being here, for those who are on the live stream, for those who are donating, to Professor Manukyan, to Rob Frankenberry, to Roger Zahab, to Professor Tetyana, to Jake, everybody, to Jurij Fedynskyj, and to Victoria, and everybody that's here tonight. So let's listen and enjoy, and thank you again for everything that you're doing for Ukraine.
And thank you, Adriana Helbig.
All right, let's sing.
Ой, у лузі червона калина.
We'll sing to the remix.
Ой, у лузі червона калина похилилася, чогось наша славна Україна зажурилася, а ми тую червону
Слава Україні! Героям слава!
And if anybody would like to take a look at the instruments or maybe have a group photo,
Yeah,
that's
we
a good
should
time.
have a group photo for sure.